Hey guys, what's up? Unrested back again, and today it is the top 10 personality traits, attitudes, dispositions, whatever you want to say, that don't work in Japan, that completely fail when they get here. And these aren't, slight versions of these attitudes. These are like the extremes. So when you hear me talking about this, maybe you have some of these traits, maybe you have some of this in your attitude. It's okay. Don't worry too much about it. But if you are an extreme version of this, you might not be a good match for Japan. Let's get right into it with number one, the rule breaker. Maybe you're a bit of a rebel. You like to forge your own path. You like to make your own way in the world. And by doing that, you have to break a couple rules. You have to think outside of the box. You have to kind of stamp out your own path. Well, that might not work so well in Japan, mostly because Japan is very set in its ways. There are companies that have been around for 500 years. There's a construction company, one of the oldest in Japan, that has been around for 500 plus years, and they have some stuff in place that they're not going to change their position on. Schools have been teaching English a certain way for the past 50 years. That just hasn't worked very well for teaching people English. Hence, Japan has the lowest English literacy rate and comprehension rate in the entire world. As far as Asian countries are concerned, and they're not going to change that anytime soon. That's not going to be something that's going to be revolutionized by you being a rule breaker and being like, look, you guys are doing it wrong. Let me come here and shake things up. It's just not going to work. What you're going to do is end up hitting head on head, bull to bull, horns to horns, ram to ram. You like my definitions, don't you? But it's just not going to work out. What's going to happen mostly if you come there trying to say like we should change this and change this, I think these are the new rules we should have, or the Japanese are going to be very polite, they're going to be very friendly, and they're going to give you an answer like, I see what you're talking about, maybe. And that maybe actually means no. Stop trying to change things. Yes, they are broken, let them be broken. If it's broken, don't fix it. That's a lot of what goes on in a lot of Japanese companies. Hence, they're running very inefficiently and not doing as well in their keeping up their nation's GDP overall. Number two, unconventional. You can be unconventional in a lot of different ways, in the way you dress, the way you act, the way you approach things. And obviously, there is some very unconventional styles within Japan. You've got like Harajuku girls, you've got people out in Akihabara who wear cosplay. You've got Den Den Town, where you've got all different types of almost like anime styles going on out there. And those people are the same as you if you dress unconventionally. And not that I'm saying there's anything wrong with that. I used to be very unconventional. I was like the only goth kid in my school, in my high school. I was punk rock with a mohawk after that. And even me being in Japan, I had tattoos, which is very unconventional, having tattoos there. You're going to stick out like a sore thumb. Now, obviously, I survived. I did okay for the past 15 years in Japan. I was able to kind of put that side of me away by wearing things like long sleeves. People always ask me, how do you get a job in Japan with tattoos? And it's like, I cover it up. I don't go to the job and expect them to redefine the rules to match what my preferences is. In America, I can teach with my tattoos wide out, pointing to the board, having my full sleeve, and, nobody bats an eye. The principal has tattoos at my school. But in Japan, no matter where I taught, even things like me wearing long sleeves, if I would point to something on the board and just like a little bit would come out, some schools would actually go out and buy me a wristband and be like, can you wear this wristband like when you point to the board so that you can even cover up like the tiny bit of tattoo that shows up when you point to the board. So if you try to force being unconventional in any way into a job system, a social situation, it might not go over very big. I did have people when I worked at Nova who just wouldn't listen to the policy of you need to hide your tattoos the whole time. They would roll up their sleeves while they did even their job that was just like online teaching. So you're only seeing like this part of yourself, pretty much like how I'm talking to you right now, torso up, because it was like webcam teaching. Sorry, I'm getting a bunch of cat hair all in my face. It's like you see me batting at stuff in the air. And they were fired. They were let go, and they were like, "What? I just can't show my tattoos." And they're like, yeah, that's what we said from day one, no tattoos at work. And they'd be like, well, I mean, no one can even see my arms on the webcam. They're below the webcam. And they're like, no, it's for everybody. It's even for the other employees. Is it ridiculous sometimes? Absolutely. Is it call people out for things that just make them themselves and are part of their personality? Absolutely. But it's Japan, and when you're in their country, you're following their rules. And if you can't follow rules, you won't gel well with Japan. Number 3, happy-go-lucky. And when I say happy-go-lucky, I mean not that you can't have like an upbeat attitude, skipping and singing all around Japan, although people might think you're pretty odd. I'm saying people who just head out to Japan with like little to no research. The people who come to Japan are just like, I've seen some stuff about Japan on Discovery Channel. I've seen a couple like flashy YouTube videos about Japan. That place looks awesome. I want to go there. I can't tell you how many people I worked with when I first got there, and they were like the first wave of brand new fresh teachers who thought Japan literally had like robots and like advanced computers, or that there was still like ninjas and samurais and stuff like that. And you're just like, wow, really? Like, you made it through college. You have a college degree, and you're coming out here and you didn't do any research to figure out that, Japan, it's kind of like not super futuristic and not living in the past either. It's kind of just the same place your country is as far as technology is concerned. Sometimes even far behind, where I think there's some aspects of Japan that are really far behind as far as like how structures are built, how the government works, how records are kept, where a lot of records are still kept written down so that even if a ward office burns down, everybody just loses their public records. I always thought that was kind of ridiculous. So there is some stuff that's like antiquated technology, let's put it that way, to say it the nicest way possible. People who just like had these imaginary ideas. And I think if you want a better, I guess, reflection on this, or like expand it on this, look at my video that's called Why Weeaboos Don't Last in Japan. This is kind of the whole weeaboo, where they like learned everything they know about Japan from watching their favorite anime and are shocked when they get there and angry at Japan that it doesn't celebrate them. I remember there was one girl in Nova where I don't know what anime she had watched, but it was about like a gaijin girl goes to Japan, and because she has like blue eyes and blonde hair, like all the boys love her, and she never got a date, never could go out with anybody, and was like really angry at the Japanese and left because she couldn't meet a nice Japanese guy. Like, she said they were all like too shy and wouldn't talk to her and stuff like that. I do not know what her dating life was, or like how she was approaching these men, but she was like so angry about this, she left in the first 3 weeks and went back to New Zealand, where she was from. She must have had more issues going on than just Japan, though. I was always shocked. That was one that really shocked me, though, of a person who left. And that was just kind of that happy-go-lucky, like, yeah, Japanese people do think blonde hair and blue eyes is neat. I know because I have the blue eyes. But, like, it doesn't mean, like, everybody wants to date you because of that. I didn't pool dates nonstop because I had blue eyes. Narcissistic. Being a narcissistic person. Obviously, most of us know that's kind of a negative attitude to have in any country. The narcissistic attitude is frowned upon because you think you're the end-all be-all of everything going on in the room. Everything's got to be about you. You're the most important person in the place that you're at right now, and that does not go over big in Japan. If you want to talk yourself up, if you want to be like grandiose with everything you speak about, most Japanese people will let you. They'll let you ramble. They'll let you talk. I had one roommate who was like this, and my God, he had to butt into every conversation. And if you're wondering, you're like, why were you a roommate with this guy, Scott? Well, actually, when you get to Japan with Nova, when I first got there, they would choose your roommates for you. I didn't actually get to choose this. So this guy was like argumentative and narcissistic, and he would just like butt into every conversation and talk himself up and everything like that. And like I said, again, Japanese people are polite. They are nice. They are accommodating, and they would smile nicely. They would be like, yes, you are so good. Let's say his name was Matt. You are so good, Matt-san. Very exciting, Matt-san. And, like, they would talk him up, let him, like, but you could just tell, like, when you look at somebody and they have, like, a painful smile, like a forced pain smile, where they're just like, Yeah, okay. Like it was like that with everything this guy talked about because it was all about him all the time. And he would get into like argument. He had to get into an argument, even if it was with like the Japanese about their own past history and tradition. He'd be like, "No, that's not. I didn't hear how that happened. That didn't happen like that. There was," and they would just be like, even with their own history, they'd be like, "Ah, maybe you are right. Maybe I am confused," because the Japanese just aren't very argumentative. They don't see like a huge point in like arguing back and forth between something that's so it doesn't affect anything in your life. Like just talking about history is not going to like affect your next day at work or how much income you make or so. Like if someone would start talking about Japanese history, he'd be like, "That's not what I read. I read this on Wikipedia," and it's like, great source. And he would argue down other Japanese people about their own history, and it's like, I learned a little bit about Japanese history before I came to Japan, but if a Japanese person was like, "No, I think it happened like this," I'd be like, "Oh, probably I'm wrong," and I'd go look it up later and be like, "Ah, this is what he was talking about, okay." It wouldn't be something I would argue to the death, just to prove a point, but this is what this guy would do, and I saw him get fired from 3 different jobs. He eventually moved to Korea, and tried to work there, and then eventually he just went home. Like he just couldn't fit in with any sort of mild Eastern society where arguing is just not cool, bro. Okay, like the Japanese are not down for like a hardcore argument about what you think is right and what they think is, their actual history. Emotional. Next one, number 5, being emotional. Now, look, there's nothing wrong with showing your emotion, with showing the softer side of you, with opening up about people. I'm not saying like hide that, hold that shut, and never talk to someone about your emotions, what's affecting you daily. I think it's good for your mental health. I think it like opens up a lot of pathways to healing and becoming the better you. Japan's not ready for that. Okay, sorry, Japan's just not ready for that. I think depression itself, and you can look this one up online. I remember even hearing this on an Aki Dearest video. Depression was not recognized as a actual mental illness. And when I say depression, I mean like clinical depression, where like you need to go to the hospital for it or do like inpatient, outpatient care, until about 1990 in Japan. So, yikes. Work stress hasn't been recognized until recently as well, where they realize, gosh, maybe sometimes we're working people a little too hard, and that's making them not be as energetic or as efficient at work. So a lot of things are not being recognized until recently. I think even while I was there in Japan, they finally accepted the fact that like ADHD existed and stuff like that. That was like around 2018 or something. Like it was finally like psychiatric places were like, you know what, I think this is actually a real thing. We've noticed this in some students, and maybe we shouldn't just send them down a path we think they deserve to go down just because they act a little bit different in school. Maybe they can do just all the same things that everybody can do. And of course, this is not a knock on ADHD people. I myself have ADHD. So, but being emotional, Japan is not with it, especially like out in public. I'm sure you've heard people say Japanese people have their inside face and their outside face. Inside face, you can do pretty much whatever you want at home when you're got the doors locked, the windows shut, and you can just be who you are. But the outside face is that smiling, happy face. Everything's always great. Even if I absolutely hate this customer service job that I am working right now, I will smile at your every question and every stupid complaint that you make because I am Japanese and we smile all the time, and this is my outside face. Having an emotional outburst is frowned upon. There's the very famous TikTok video of the Japanese girl screaming in front of the Harajuku passing area in downtown Tokyo, and she's just freaking out and punching like a streetlight post, it looks like, and you can just see the people around her are like forking off into different paths, even though they need to go down the way that she is at. They're freaking out, and it's sad. It's super sad to see because like obviously this girl needs some kind of help. This girl is upset, distraught. Something just happened in her life. We do not know what the story is of the video. I don't think it's comedic or funny. I think it's just sad. But you can watch as the Japanese people split and walk around her and don't come over to be like, hey, I don't know what's going on. It's going to be okay. Or hey, I don't know what's going on, but like maybe just like let's step over here for a second so we can get you out of the way and you can kind of calm down, take some deep breaths. Here's a bottle of water. You know, just the small comforting things you can do that I would probably see that happen in America, I mean, when someone's having like a full mental breakdown where like maybe you're like, okay, I need to call like 911 or something like that. But I've seen people have like a crying fit where like maybe they just got some distressing news, or maybe they're having like a panic attack or something like that. And an American person sometimes would come up to them and be like, hey, what's going on? You okay? Like, can I help you? What can I help you with? Like, that's more common in America, which I think that speaks volumes about America. Everyone wants to talk about how mean, aggressive, hateful, racist, whatever that Americans are. But I will say, I think Americans are great about showing compassion on the street. When they see somebody in trouble, when they see someone having like some kind of issue, some kind of panic, some kind of upsetting situation, I would say in general there is a lot of compassion or empathy or sympathy from Americans who will come over and actually help that person. So, score one for the Americans for once. Japanese will not do that. And it's not because they're a cold, hateful people who are programmed to not care about their fellow Japanese person. It's just that would break their outside face. That would kind of go against what's the norm in society, that when you are outside, you smile, you're calm, you stick to your own business, you don't get into other people's business. I think that's the number one thing driving them, is that like, what is your business is yours, mine is mine. I'm not going to try and inject my own ideas, politics, thoughts, and sadly even comfort onto you as far as what's going on in your life right now. So being emotional, having an emotional outburst in public will definitely make people scared of you, upset. Has there been times where I've done it? Yeah, I have. I had one time where it was 8 a.m. My baby was sick. My son was still a baby back then. He was sick, and a politician decided to pull their loud microphone speaker filled bus up to my apartment, out in front of it, and just start shouting campaign slogans and stuff like that. And I came downstairs and I was just like, yo, cut it off, you're done. All right, I explained in Japanese, my baby is upstairs sick right now with the flu, and you're screaming, waking him up by booming stuff here on the Saturday that he finally gets to stay home from school and recover. And you're screaming at the top of your lungs here some kind of campaign slogan that my kid does not care about. He cares about getting healthy. That's what my wife and I care about right now. Like, I angrily shouted this, and like I made the symbol of like cut it off and things like that. And like, the Japanese people around me, they were like, but I actually saw some that were like, because most Japanese people hate these campaign trucks too as well. But I was pissed, man. I just gotten my kid to go to sleep. He was sick. And I was pissed that this guy had just come out there and just started shouting. And I mean, I'm talking, these are loud. Like, these are like high levels of decibels, like echoing off the walls of the buildings all around you in this tight-knit little residential area. And they were pretty embarrassed because I was explaining it all in Japanese, that, hey, you just woke up like a sick baby trying to go to sleep, and like, why are you out here shouting? Nobody cares about this. I just want my kid to get well. I was kind of like at my limit. I'd worked a full week and everything, but because I did that, they did pack everything up and leave like immediately. I think it made them look bad. I think people were uncomfortable with me shouting and being angry, of course, but it also did make them look really bad, that, hey, like, this guy's just trying to get his sick kid better. So I think you guys are kind of looking like jerks, even though this guy is angry. So they packed it all up and left. So that was my emotional outburst. But I don't suggest you do it. Loneliness. You can actually find a bunch of videos on YouTube about being lonely in Japan. I'm sure I've made videos about it. Japan is lonely. This is number 6 on the list, by the way. Loneliness in Japan. People always ask me, they're like, why? Is it like hard to make friends with Japanese people? Is it hard to make friends with Gaijin, other foreigners who are out there? And it's like, you know what? No, it's not hard. It's not difficult. Especially if you learn the language fluently, you're going to make friends. Um, and of course you're going to have other foreigners out there you can make friends with, but guess what? Your friends are always leaving. They're constantly leaving. Everybody's going back home. Very few people are going to be making this a lifelong dream, or a lifelong pursuit, especially when it comes to like careers they want in life. Like I said, you will see a lot of people leave around the age of 30, 35. I saw a ton of friends leave during that time and say, you know what, peace out. I'm not getting the job that I want out here in Japan simply because I am a foreigner and I don't speak the language fluently, and that's not on me. I mean, sorry, that's not on Japan, that's on me. And they headed home, and all the power to them to pursue whatever career they were going after. It's fine. I understand it, and I support it. But they were just done. They were just like, I'm done trying to fight to get into the tech industry in here. I need to be able to speak fluently, and I understand why, because there's a lot of lexicon around the tech industry. And they headed home. Or they just, like family issues come up, you get homesick. So all the friends you're going to have are very transient. They're moving around. Sometimes, they want to try other Asian countries to teach, and they want to go to China. They want to go to South Korea. They want to check those out for teaching as well. Like I said, I always talk about this, that I came over to Japan with 40 teachers at one time. I met almost all of them. We partied a lot of nights. This is back when I was really young too. I was like only like 26 or something around this time, 26, 27, I think. And, I no girlfriend, not married, no kids. So, the night was young, the night was mine. I could do what I wanted during this time. I came over there, worked my 8-hour job, and I'd go out and party with these guys every night. There was 40 of them. And it was fun. We had a great night out on the town all the time. After 1 year, it was me and 2 other teachers left from that 40 teachers that enrolled at the school we were teaching at. Mind you, the school we had started at went bankrupt, so we were scattered by that. They did own the apartments we lived in, so a lot of people lost the place they lived in. And you did have to learn some of the language to at least make your way into your own next job, your own next apartment, and learn the lay of the land to really get implemented into Japan. So some people just didn't want to put up with that, and I understand why. It makes sense. They just you know what, I'm just going to go back to my own country where everybody speaks my language and I can get into anything I want. You will end up lonely as far as your foreigner friends are concerned. They're probably going to head out. With the Japanese side, I think it's not that Japanese are cold or hateful or angry. They're very nice. They're very polite. You can make friends. I'd say some of my students that I had as far as private students were my friends. I had one guy, he and I would talk almost every lesson about music. He was really big into music. And the interesting thing is he kind of went through all the phases of music that I did too. We kind of were the same age. So, we'd talk about during, high school years, I was into gothic and industrial music. Then my college years, I was into hardcore punk and metal and stuff like that. So we had these long conversations. It was kind of just chatting with a friend more than a lesson. But there was nothing deeper than that. We would never hang out outside of the lesson. We'd never hang out to grab a drink or anything like that. He ran a business, and when he wasn't there at the lessons, he was just working all the time. There wasn't really time to hang out with him at any point. There was other friends I had. I had another friend I met who had a metal band. He was part of a death metal band, and we could always talk about metal music and stuff like that because he really liked that connection about role-playing games, Warhammer, things like that. But we never had a deeper connection because a lot of his influences as far as RPGs, metal, action and things like that was all Japanese based, and I had not grown up with those same things. It's if you grew up watching the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles in America and you try to talk to a Japanese person about how fun, cool that was back when you were in 4th grade, they wouldn't be able to connect with you on that. And I know that's just one small sample of life of connectivity via media, but you didn't grow up with all the same things, so you can't even swap the same kind of inside jokes and stuff like that, or make fun of something in the same way that like, oh, we don't know what's going on in this situation. I guess we better call out the mystery van from Scooby-Doo. Like, if you try to make a joke like that, or like a snide remark, it wouldn't even be picked up by the Japanese, even if they were your like long-term friend, because you didn't grow up together with the same media in your past. You can't make connections like that. There's even things like, religion, how your parents raised you, all different things like that. You miss those small connections that you have with people in the country you grew up with. So there's always kind of like a loss of connection of like, oh, we both realize this thing is like something from our youth or something from us growing up in this culture. You never make those connections, and so the friendship is never quite as close. As well as like Japanese people take a much longer time to bond than American people do. I think we become closer friends quicker, and we open up to each other quicker in America than most Japanese people do. So if you're willing to put in like a really long time, and I'm talking to you like 10 to 20 years of building up a friendship with a Japanese person who will finally kind of let loose on like maybe some personal details. Other than that, they stay pretty private, even when you're just like hanging out, like having a pizza together, going to see a movie, playing a video game. They're not going to open up to you about like even like how, their youth, how they were raised, problems they had in school, a crazy story that happened to them, a wild adventure they went on. Whereas like as Americans, we love to talk about those kind of stories. We love to talk about like, oh, one time, this reminds me of the one time I blah, blah, blah. Japanese won't ever do that. They'll, hold that stuff inside until they really, really trust you. It takes a long time for them to build up trust in a bond compared to Americans. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. It's just a cultural situation that works out like that. Number 7, anxiety. Anxiety can be a real killer. I experienced some of this, yeah, definitely. There was the anxiety of going to a store and wanting to buy something and not being totally sure if I was asking for it in the right way or talking about it in a way where a person would understand me. I could say the things I wanted to say about the product that I wanted to buy. I could listen to their feedback on it, and sometimes I still wouldn't be able to make the connection. This happened to me a lot with tech type stuff that I was looking for. Sometimes with art stuff too, but art, for me, was a lot less complicated. I knew enough about art that I could go to the art store, and even if the person couldn't help me, I could eventually find the tool that I wanted. Whereas like tech stuff, I'd be like, I know I need this piece for my computer, but I don't know exactly how to explain exactly what I need. That's kind of been smoothed out more recently, I'd say, with like Google Translate, where you can kind of hold the camera over something and it translates for you. And that didn't really come out until like the last 2 or 3 years that I was in Japan. So before that, it built up a lot of anxiety. Even sometimes just going to the grocery store and I'm like, God, I just need this one ingredient, and I don't know what they call this in Japan, because it's like, just an herb or something like that I barely ever use, or just like a small ingredient in a bigger dish that I barely ever. Why would I have ever talked to anybody about this word at any point? I need nutmeg for this. How many times have I said nutmeg in Japanese? You know what I mean? So that would always like build up a lot of anxiety in me. I'd look up the word before I go there. I'd be like, okay, just gotta say this word, gotta say this word, gotta say this word. Sometimes I would just like leave it on my phone and be like, this, do you have this? And they'd be like, yeah, this. Even though I had said it like a million times, probably my pronunciation was garbage, and they were just like, oh, that's what this person was trying to say. There was anxiety with just like, you would always be stared at everywhere all the time. If you can't stand being stared at, maybe Japan life is not for you. You're gonna be stared at 24/7. Even for things like you're talking just a little bit too loud, they're probably, if I sat down on the train, people would clear out. And it's not that they hate foreigners. They're not like, oh no, dirty gaijin sitting down next to me. It's that my train line ran on the way to the airport. Excuse me. Ran on the way to the airport. Like, it was the line that continued all the way to the airport. And they would get questioned a lot from people arriving into Japan for the first time about how to go somewhere. So people were always nervous, like, is this person going to ask me in English, like, how to get to somewhere? And then I'm going to have to struggle with the tiny bit of English that I know. I don't want to be put in this situation right now. I'm just trying to get to work today, not trying to struggle in a second language. So they would just get up and leave when I would sit down on that train line. And, it's nothing against, like I said, they're not angry at foreigners. They don't hate gaijin. They're not racist. They just don't want to be bothered about directions. And but that would still create anxiety and like, did I do something? Did I offend someone? Am I gross? Do I smell bad? Like, I've had, you learn to live with that fact. I got over that pretty quick living in Japan, but for some people that constantly is a source of anxiety. Number 8, work in progress. Are you a work in progress? Are you working on your mental health? Are you working on finding the true you? Are you struggling with some demons right now? They could be anything from addiction to your personal mental health, your well-being, your search for self. Japan's probably not a good idea to be at when you're trying to do stuff like this. If you're dealing with kind of a big shift in your life, a mental struggle, something tragic or painful that just happened to you, really soul searching, trying to figure out like what's going on, it may not be the time to go to Japan. I have seen people run away from bad experiences that they were having in their own country and think that when they were in Japan they'd be so far away from it and so enamored with the Japanese culture that they would be able to take their mind off of it. And for a while they're right. For a while they do escape it. For a while they are in that paradise of exploring a brand new place, that utopian honeymoon area of their life where they're just like, I don't even have to think about this anymore. I love everything I see. Japanese culture is amazing. And then, after 2 to 3 months, you're like, oh, wait, I'm just living here. This is just regular every day. And then slowly, little by little, that mental anguish starts to creep back into their life. And not only is it amplified because they can't take comfort in the people that were close to them at home, but it starts to twist the dagger in even deeper because they have no outlet to talk to about this. Going to get mental health in Japan is both expensive, hard to find, and still relatively a new idea, especially if you're trying to do it in English. It's it's not a place to go to if you're struggling with your mental health, is all I can say. There's not a lot of good outlets for that, especially if you have a lot of medications you need to take right now too to kind of balance you out and stuff like that. A lot of the stuff you can't get prescribed in Japan. And a lot of it you're going to have to be doing in straight Japanese because there's not a lot of English speaking psychiatrists, psychiatric help, mental health going on. It's still a very, very new idea and sometimes even seen as taboo, which is awful. I had a friend who worked a job and he had to take SSRIs while he was at the job. And obviously there's nothing wrong with that. He was just taking care of himself. And when people would ask him what kind of medicine that was and he just plainly described it, they boxed themselves off from him. We're just like, oh, weird, you have to take mental health medicine, gross. And he was ostracized at his job and eventually was just like, I can't take this anymore. Why am I being excommunicated simply for taking a dose of what I have to keep me balanced? This is sick. And he went back home because of that. It's just, it's not a good place for your mental health. If your mental health is in a bad place right now, don't try to escape it by moving to Japan. You will end up further aggravating the wound. That's all I can say. Number 9, career-driven people. If you want to move up in whatever industry you're in, if that industry is English teaching, even then you probably won't be able to move up very much. The most I ever saw English teachers move up through the path of English teaching is maybe becoming a manager of teachers, in which they just worked longer hours and still did the same thing, and also had to deal with teachers who were constantly leaving and have to deal with a high turnover rate and hire new people. It was super stressful for them. They did not like the job. And in other industries, I very rarely see somebody move up through their industry as a foreigner. For the most part, the number one question you are going to get asked is, why did you come to Japan? And the second most asked questions is, when are you going home? You'll get asked that a lot, and a lot of companies think that too. They don't see you as a permanent employee who's there to move up their corporate ladder. And that's simply just because Gaijin in general, foreigners in general, only make up 0.1% of the population in Japan. And that's not including most of them being Asian. You as a Gaijin coming from a Western country, they don't foresee you lasting long. And that's because most don't last long in Japan. Me being in there for 15 years, give me a break, man, give me a flake, man. I think he's been there for like 20 or 30 years at this point. Like, I think it's like 30 years he's been there. It's a rare exception. They don't foresee you being that rare exception. It's nothing against you. If you want to blame anybody, blame the hundreds of gaijin, the thousands of gaijin that have gone back home halfway through a job and like split from whatever their contract was. And hence they don't imagine you staying there a long time to move up the corporate ladder and make no plan for that. So if you're career driven, you're like, I'm going to go to Japan and this is going to be where I finally make my breakout movement and move into like, I don't know, like the music industry, the movie industry, the corporate ladder, becoming in part of the medical industry, you would be a very, very, very rare exception. You would be the rainbow unicorn of your gaijin pack. That's super rare. I mean, you don't really see any gaijin moving up through multiple levels of a music career, an acting career, especially a medical career. It's very rare. So, I mean, you know, I'm not trying to crush everybody's dream out there, but do realize that's a very, very rare exception. And number 10, extroverts. Extroverts, really? I can't just go out and talk to people? I will say the people who I found to be like the most extroverted, and these are like the extreme cases. You ever met somebody where it's just like, you want to chill on the weekend and play video games, and they're like, no, I have to go out and do something. I have to go out and talk to people. Why is there no one around to talk to? And this can be for multiple reasons. I mean, they just love to be a social butterfly, and there's nothing wrong with that. I met other people who have like a ton of brothers and sisters, and they're just used to like, what's comforting to them is always being in conversations, having loud, boisterous conversations around them all the time. Because they grew up in that, that is the most comforting to them. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with this. I'm just saying people's different backgrounds. And they want to go out to a place where there's a lot of loud, boisterous conversations. There's not a lot of outlets for that in Japan. I remember my friend and I having to go out to this one place called Triangle Park in Amimura in downtown Osaka. And that was probably like the most boisterous, loud conversation place where people could just come up, meet you, and have random conversations. And even that was like very milquetoast as far as conversations would go. Someone might see you like skateboarding or working on some art or doing some kind of project on your laptop or computer or whatever you're working on, like drawing on a tablet or something. And they might start a conversation with you if they were very brave and very different from most Japanese people. It's just not a place where you go out and start talking to people on the street. Japanese people are not comfortable with that. Just even like you sitting at a bus stop and trying to start a conversation with the person next to you. You sitting on the train and trying to start a conversation with the person next to you. The Japanese in general are very to themselves within their own area, mind their own business. The trains, the bus stops, being on the bus, it's like being in a library all the time. Finding a loud, boisterous conversational area is more of a rare find in Japan. Of course, they exist somewhere. I'm probably not even thinking of it right now, and later after I finish recording, it'll pop up in my head. But for now, that just isn't really a big thing in Japan. And being extroverted and going out and talking to random strangers and stuff like that, if that's your thing, you're gonna have to search for that. You might be your conversational battery might be wearing down as you try to search for stuff like that. So be aware if being extroverted and going out and being yippy yappy and chitty chatty, it might not be the place for you. So those are the top 10 types of people, dispositions, attitudes, backgrounds, ethos, whatever you want to call it, that might not work out for you coming to Japan. Don't let any of these stop you. Anything I said today, if you're like, wait, that's me, that doesn't mean you're not supposed to come to Japan. That doesn't mean you don't have a future in Japan. It's just a small warning of things to be aware of when coming to Japan. Take everything I say with a pinch of salt. Watch other videos about it. Don't trust me as the end-all be-all source of these not being the reason you go to Japan. I highly encourage you to invest your own time researching, watching more YouTubers, learning more about situations people have had, their own experiences. I think people talking about their own experiences in Japan are the best source of that. Interviews on the street, things like that. Check those out too. Don't just go by what I say. And I hope this is a helpful video or just something that's kind of interesting to learn about Japan. I want to give a huge shout out. Hold on, I got to call them out. I now have nine members on my membership group, and they need to all get shout outs right now. We've got Ice Cold, Reinhard or Die Trying, awesome name, love that one. Trek Nick, I Am Sandpaper, Unaloki or Unalki, I never know how to say that one. Aaron Spooner, who I think you've actually changed your YouTube name and it doesn't show up in the membership, so I'm sorry about that. If you keep changing your YouTube name, it doesn't update in the membership, so I apologize for that. I will try to figure out what your new one is. Send me a message or something and I'll do it. Andre Sanchez, Sprinkly Donut, and Smile Kita 13. Thank you guys so much. You guys rock. You're the awesomest. You're the best ever. Actually, I want to give one more shout out. There's a Patreon too. Give me just a second. Waiting for Patreon to load. Blind Man Travels. Thank you so much for joining my Patreon as well. I'm not as active on Patreon, and actually I would encourage you, if you are thinking about joining the Patreon, to maybe join memberships here on YouTube first. You get access to members only videos, and guess what? This week I have finally put together my members only Discord. If you join that, there's 3 different levels you can join. There's the Gakusei level where you are the student. It's only $190 a month. There's the next level up, the Kohai, which Andre Sanchez has joined. Thank you so much. And that is the Kohai level. Everybody talks about the Senpai, but they never talk about the Kohai. That is the apprentice to the master. And of course, there is the final level, the Senpai level, which is actually quite a high level. That one is $35. And if you do decide to join that one, message me immediately. You are now a producer of my videos, and we will be actively talking about what you want to get seen and made for the future. You will have a huge influence and push on that. But the first 2 levels, $1.90. Next level up, $5.90. $35 is the only one that's kind of crazy. It's out there. I don't actually expect anybody to join it. But if you do, you have producer and co-producer rights onto every video that I make, and you're part of the process. And you need to email me immediately if you join that. Guys, thank you so much for the memberships. You guys rock so much. If you want to become a member on the channel, I put all the information in the notes and usually pin it as well. Of course, as always, I hope I've earned your subscription or your view, and that is payment in itself. I thank you for any likes you put on the videos. I thank you for any subscriptions. If you're new here, please subscribe. If there's one way you feel like you could pay me back in the smallest, most amazing way possible, is subscribing. Really does the most for me. You know, I get your view as soon as you click on the video, but the subscription lets me know that you're liking what you're seeing and I need to continue down this path. Let me know what you want to see for the future. I'm always open to more JFAQs, Japan's frequently asked questions. I'm sure there's topics I'm not even thinking of, and always evolving news that comes out from Japan. Definitely put those in the comments below. Let me know what you think of these different personality types, and if you yourself have ever encountered this when going to Japan, or are worried about something that you have in one of these 10 traits that I listed that you think might conflict with Japan. I will put you at ease and let you know that probably you are okay. I am only talking about the most extreme versions in this video. I love you all. You guys are awesome. You're the most adorable, cute little fans anybody could ever have. And until next time, I'm Unrested, and I hope you have a great rest of the day.